Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Build Time. Today we've got an exciting one for you. We've got a guest. His name is Sam, and he's with DevWorld. And he's a prolific content creator in the developer space. We're excited to have him join us. Sam, how are you doing today?
Hey Tony, thanks for having me here. I'm doing very well. Thanks for the invite of Stefan as well.
Awesome. And we
Yeah,
got
Sam,
my
it's
partner in
yeah.
crime at Build Time, Stefan here. Stefan, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic, Tony. It's a truly special episode here. It's always fun having guests and actually, honestly, having a guest on here that introduced me to Cosmic in itself. So I think it's going to be really fun to kind of learn about his journey as a self-taught developer and a YouTuber. And yeah, let's get into it. So
Yeah.
Sam, will you give us like a quick introduction, like kind of your journey and some of the tech you started learning with, and yeah, what's going on?
Sure. The whole thing started when I'm from Switzerland, but I never really felt home in Switzerland. So one of my big goals in life was to move out of Switzerland, which I did with around 25 years old. I left Switzerland for Colombia, but for preparing for that, I thought it might be a good idea to acquire some digital knowledge. I was a sales guy, like outside sales guy for quite a while, but I knew in Colombia I probably wouldn't do the same thing. So of course, online was the way to go. So I taught myself like online marketing, more of that side, not programming in the beginning. And then I started actually a business in Colombia, which helped foreigners to relocate. This is also where then Cosmic came into my world, and that business was heavily leaning on online. So the thing that we did to acquire clients was YouTube. This is how people got to know us. And then of course we had a blog, which we did first with Wix, then with WordPress, and then at the end of the day with Cosmic, where it stays at the moment. Then during that time where I had the company there for yes some reasons, also COVID was one of the reasons, we stopped the company. So we means my wife and I. And during the COVID time in Colombia, where we actually had quite a heavy lockdown, so we were almost enclosed in our apartment for like 8 months. We could only go out to get grocery shopping like once or twice a week. The rest we had to stay in. I taught myself how to program, and started with front-end development because I came more from kind of the business aspect. I did online marketing to design and then to development. That's kind of my journey that I did there. And yeah, then I started front-end web development with that's the thing that I'm still doing right now in a company, in a German company.
Wow, that's cool. So you essentially were already kind of in this digital world and just wanted some more technical skills. Were you like growing up, were you always a pretty technical person, like on your computer and stuff like that?
Yeah, what I started with, like technically yes, or technical yes, but more in the space of mechanical. So when I was 14 in
Got it.
Switzerland, we have this big culture of fixing mopeds. It's like small motorcycles. You can drive them with 14. So that's a big thing I did as soon as I started getting 14. I started
Nice.
working on those. And then at 16 in Switzerland, we have apprenticeships. Like a lot of people do apprenticeships instead of going to the university. I did it as a car mechanic. So I was always interested in like figuring out systems. That's at the end of the day what I am. It's kind of a systems engineer, but just the lifestyle requirements I have for like being location independent mostly makes IT kind of the best system engineer type of work I can do. So that's why I'm doing it. Yeah.
Got it.
I had a question for Sam. How did you actually get into doing the YouTube videos? When did you start DevWorld, or when did you feel comfortable enough to actually talk about your web development? Because some people, I think the term is called imposter syndrome. Some people feel uncomfortable actually talking about their development until they feel like they're a master. But how did you kind of get into that? What sort of things did you ever come to start doing that?
The good thing about YouTube is that the Dev World was my first thing I did. So I started YouTube way back, maybe like 6, 7, 8 years ago now, where I had my first couple of channels. So speaking in front of the camera was way easier, which also helped me then to not have like too big of an imposter syndrome, because I've gone through a couple of YouTube channels already. I knew that, yeah, if you explain stuff, it doesn't have to be on point. It's your point of view. So that surely helped. But on the other hand, it's just kind of realizing that it's not black and white. Like some people do it one way, some people do it the other way, and you're just on your own journey. And if it helps somebody, if they can see the video, that's perfect. And if not, yeah, then no issue with that. But the good thing is I haven't really had any like negative comments on anything. So yeah, I think the dev community from all of the other YouTube channels that I had is, yeah, by far the nicest, the best. I think very rational people generally.
Yeah, I think the message that you have as far as like, development, like as a self-taught engineer, that resonates with people. It seems like the approach that you're taking is very authentic, where you talk about, just kind of the different tools you like to use, and maybe exploring things and taking visitors on a journey. At Cosmic, this is sort of, an early thing for us, is doing the conversational podcasting, just kind of talking with people about their journey. I'm a self-taught engineer, Stefan's self-taught, and it's really refreshing, I think, to come at this with just a beginner's mindset of like, we're all learning together, especially with technology. We're all learning, all of the latest trends and things that are kind of coming up, and exploring it. So in your early career, is there anything that kind of you saw that was really popular? Is like any specific video that you did that really kind of exploded, that helped you kind of validate your work?
Yeah, funny enough is it's my first video. So the first video I did is VS Code with GitHub, connecting that. And that's the video still that, like, I think it has 500,000 views at this point.
Wow.
Which is crazy. And it was the first video. Again, it was not my first video generally on YouTube, so it was a little bit more, relative to the other videos as well. But that's just crazy. Like nowadays I get, maybe a couple of thousand, and I never really did the channel generally for views. But yeah, the first video like blew up, and it's still going strong. So yeah, that's very interesting.
That's
wow, knocked it out of the park.
Do you have at this point? Yeah, on the first one. How many videos do you have at this point? And do you consistently upload? Like, what's your approach to YouTube, and what's it been?
So for me, YouTube is not really something very serious. I work 100% occupy, or with 100% occupation in my normal job, and then I just moved from Colombia to Italy, so I had a lot of other things on my plate. But usually, if I learn something from my job, and I see there's not a lot of good like documentation, or there is not a video out there that really explains it well, the approach that I have is not like leading you through a tutorial or something like that. At the moment, it's mostly just either the talking head videos where I talk about stuff that I just comes to mind, or other things. Yeah, when I learn stuff, I just put them out there if I don't think there's a better resource out there, which is very concise. So that's the thing I do. And then I just go, once I have a topic, I produce a video, and that's it.
Yeah, that's great, because like I think what a lot of developers, especially self-taught developers, people who are scrolling through YouTube and maybe Udemy and just finding these online resources for free, they're typically looking for like the real world solution. Sometimes it's you can go find like, hey, build this to-do app, build this calculator, but it's almost like, whoa, where's the realistic application for this specific problem? And I think, taking stuff from your day to day and then putting it into a video is such a great way to convey that to people. Like, hey guys, like I had this issue, figured it out, and there it is. And you never know who that's gonna reach.
Yeah, true.
What were some of like the hardest parts of like your like self-taught journey?
Yeah, the thing is, I think I started it quite in a good way, because how I started was I was doing something on Wix, on the website for the Colombian company, and I had to code something in Wix. You can actually do that, but it's a little bit obscure. It's something weird. And I figured out, that's like, I really like that, like the connecting thinking of stuff. And then I had actually built an accounting program for my personal accounting and the business accounting on like Google Sheets, which was a huge mess. Like it's with like tables and rows and connecting them with if and whens and crazy stuff. So I thought that's probably a perfect solution for like somebody that could program. And then when I taught myself to program is just leading up to that point where I can program that. And that I think was the perfect thing, how to approach that, instead of just going through courses and you never really know where you want to head with that. And then, so the courses, the first ones I did, of course, you have to do some basic stuff like learning JavaScript, like what's a loop and stuff. You have to do that, but once you get out of that, you have to build stuff. And fortunately enough, I had the perfect example, like the accounting program. But then the issue started. So there's nobody holding your hands. If you have an issue and you don't know how it's going, you have to figure it out yourself. I remember when like in React, there's this concept of providers and the actions with the dispatch. And that's, till I got that in my head, that's, it was crazy. It took me maybe a month. I was talking with people that I read their blogs, and I didn't really understand the difference between state and then this dispatch and all of these things. And then there's nobody holding your hand. You just have to power through it. And that's really the biggest issue, or the biggest hurdle once you really start getting into things. Like, it's maybe not as easy as it was in the tutorials.
Yeah, true that. Sometimes it's just you shoot into the dark and you have no idea where you're going, but sometimes it's like day one you're like, I have no idea, and then you're struggling through, and then like day 14 or 15 is like, that kind of makes sense. And then that's cool. Tony, any thoughts?
Yeah, I had a question about your kind of entry point into web development. So was it mainly on the front end? So you had some HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then you wanted to build out just like user interfaces for kind of a project at work? Is that kind of how you got into it?
Yeah, it was.
Or did you?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, or did you also get into like the back end?
Yeah, so the thing for me was, again, with the accounting project, I needed a database for that. And I knew from like doing research and getting my feet wet a little bit in backend that, I don't really enjoy too much backend. So what I used is Firestore, like Firebase Firestore. And that's, of course, backend. You have to know a little bit about data structures and all of these things. Mm-hmm. But it's not too crazy. Then I learned Node as well a little bit. I took React front to back course, and that also helped, like Node with Express and stuff, but nothing crazy. And then as soon as I was able to build my own project, usually with Firestore or something like that as a database, it was good enough for me. And then the rest I really jumped into front end and got more deep into that, especially after a while with Next.js, getting their data fetch methods really under my belt and understanding where to use server side, where to use client side. That's kind of more of the journey I took.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because, one of the themes that we have with Cosmic, and one of the things I think, we've all experienced is kind of the growing complexity of the front end stack, where a lot of the kind of back end stuff is being abstracted away through like APIs and services, and so generally, like in my experience, I've seen more and more of the complexity kind of moving towards the front end. Like you mentioned about React providers and state management, all that stuff. That's sort of a recent phenomenon, within the past maybe decade or so, where it's getting more and more complicated on the front end. And that's interesting that you mentioned that instead of like saying, some database processes or back-end server-side code complexity, it's really kind of more of the front-end type of logic that we're building up for these kind of, very modern user experiences.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, that's probably a difference, me coming from the business side. I didn't want to do back-end. I didn't want to do front-end. I wanted to build stuff. And even to this day, but when I started with websites, like I actually sold one website which was just pure HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript, like no framework, no nothing like that. That was it's a horrible experience. And for the longest time, I didn't figure out like how other web developers do that. Like, if you don't have a framework helping you, you have to copy paste the header. That's something that didn't go into my mind. Like, how that still be a thing in like web development? Like, haven't we figured out a way to do that? But it's even worse on backend, because backend, it's for web development, mostly it's quite easy. If you don't do like streaming or anything crazy, it's like I have a couple of data points and I have to connect them to some user interface. And I also thought, same like with the HTML, like why do I have to copy paste the header if I don't have a framework? It's the same issue with like there's an ID, a title, and a description and an image. Like, why do I have to build that up myself on Node? There's no reason for that. There should be like, I'm a human, I interact with like fields and stuff on my PC. Like I never really got that, so that's why I never really went into backend development. That led me to Firestore, or that led me to, of course, then to Cosmic or even WordPress. That's the way I see it. Yeah.
That's interesting. So it kind of reminds me of the Steve Jobs quote, and I'll totally butcher this, but it's something to the effect of, great product development is thinking about the user experience first and then working backwards to the technology, right? And so just having that vision of something that you want to see built and kind of thinking about it from like a creative and a product standpoint first, and then working backwards to the technology. Really not having to build some of the components is ideal, right? So you want to be able to reuse and make it somewhat composable, reusable, right? So that's I think a good starting point to kind of talk about like other things. Stefan, did you have any before we get into like the WordPress, the CMS stuff? Anything else on kind of the journey end of things?
I just got a big wave of anxiety when you said HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and copying and pasting the headers, and I think about some projects that I'm actually still working on where it is like that, and like some .NET stuff, and it's just like, oof. It's like, man, I wish I could just rebuild this in like Next.js or something, but hey, that's not my place. But that's all.
Yeah, I think we've all had those pain points of like, the don't repeat yourself, or whatever the dry don't the dry acronym. And I think that kind of going into a little bit of, I guess, probably our collective process of like doing those like unreusable things, right, or the things that don't scale. Like, and then we find WordPress and we're like, insert like a header or footer, as a function. And it's like, whoa, you can like reuse like your HTML across, different templates. That's sort of like, that aha moment that I remember having as an engineer of thinking about like, I just want to have to code less. And then, then you have this like, PHP programming language that enables you to like reuse components across different pages. For me, it was definitely sort of a transformative moment. What about you, Sam? Did you have that similar experience with maybe using some of these like backend server-side languages?
The interesting thing was I came into WordPress as a noob, like I didn't know anything about code, so I used a page builder. Like something like Divi or Elementor. Like Elementor is the one that I used. So yeah. So I came from like the business aspect. So I needed a blog. Where do you host a blog? I have built websites already with Wix. I've sold websites with Wix as a web designer. So I did Wix. And then after a while, you read blogs about like SEO performance and stuff, and everybody recommends WordPress. It's way better. Like, little did I know at that time, like what good page experience was, and page like speed scores and all of those things. And I just put page speeds tests of Google through like for my Wix site. It was horrible. But yeah, that was a couple of years back. So then I followed the advice, let's say, of all of these people and built with WordPress, because that's the best for SEO. That's what everybody said. So I rebuilt the whole website on WordPress, but with that builder. And then still, the page speed was very low. Like I had a cheap server of like Bluehost, something like that, and then of course a very bloated system in WordPress. But I did never any coding there. So that's also to this day have never coded in PHP or something like that.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah, thanks.
I'm in the same boat. Sam.
That's an accomplishment.
Tony's the PHP wizard here, and we're the fortunate enough to only drag and drop the WYSIWYG blocks into the Elementor themes and all that stuff.
I'm the old PHP goat in the room.
Yeah. I always look at Tony like, is that the one with the elephant and there's the dolphin and you know what I mean? But it's crazy though, because still to this day the statistic is something like a third of all websites on the web are still WordPress, and like I see why. And I've built sites with like Elementor, and if you choose that very simple Elementor theme, it's like the Hello Elementor. It's fine. Actually, it performs great. But then you start doing anything more to your site, adding all sorts of features. If you do e-commerce or e-learning or then you just tank. Your performance just starts tanking. But I mean, this is the pros and cons of WordPress.
Maybe I can hook in there. One of the videos that does very well on the channel is the website comparison or website builder comparison that I have, like where I compare WordPress with Wix, Squarespace, all of those. And it's very, let's say, straightforward to compare Wix to Squarespace and all of these things. But as soon as you get to WordPress, you have to say, okay, like we compared now these other four, but WordPress, like it's a little bit different. You have to know about these things. You have to know about image optimization. You have to know about which server to use. And it's like just these technical things on top of it. Whereas with the other website builders, that's just not a topic. So I think, it's just WordPress very technical, my opinion, very legacy thing, but still works if you know those technical things. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony and I talk about this before on the podcast. Is like with WordPress, it's definitely like it's a little bit more technical, but it can be such a slippery slope because, like you said, like image optimization, caching, security. Like all of a sudden you're adding this plugin, that plugin, that plugin, and then all of a sudden this plugin breaks that plugin, and you're just kind of sitting there with a broken page. And I've ran into like Elementor and using like ConvertKit plugin with Elementor, and all of a sudden the page I was just editing has this blank Elementor screen, and then it's just like the debt can really stack up with WordPress. And and I don't want to touch PHP, but I don't know. So on that note, maybe we could get into talking about like your conversion from WordPress into Cosmic and kind of that experience. Like I know from your videos it was a lot about performance, and that was a big like why. And
Sure.
Could you walk us through that kind of process and everything, how you chose Cosmic and moving off WordPress?
Sure. So that's also a big thing that I focus on in my job. I just got a promotion to be the product owner of the website. Before I was like the dev of the website. And the website generally is that we use, or the website system is SEO and Core Web Vitals and all of those things is like a huge issue there. And I was always fascinated of like this page speed score. There is always like this big myth around that. Nobody really knows like what to do to actually reach the high numbers if you run your own website through the Google Page Speed Score or the Lighthouse score and all of these things. And I never really got it with WordPress, with Wix, because it's just outside of your control. But after I studied web development and saw, okay, like in HTML, it's not a huge file that you have to have. It's not like, if you compare it to Wix or WordPress, it's very bloated. There's a couple of lines of code, that's it, that you're able to display a website. A little bit of CSS to style it, and that's it. And that's what I wanted to do kind of as an experiment, because at the time when I learned programming, I already knew that I didn't want to continue with the job. So a perfect example or perfect project for me to figure out, like, can I reach the 100 page speed score like what is exactly required to get a high score, and does this really affect SEO performance? I thought, why not convert the blog of the Colombian company, which first came from Wix, then to WordPress, and then to code, like with Next.js, and to really figure out, like, can I achieve a high score there? And then that's what I did. So I coded the whole website, I refactored it with Next.js, and then I searched for a CMS, headless CMS. I thought of WordPress first because the where it already was, and I could connect it. But WordPress has a lot of limitations in kind of a CMS space. It's, yeah, I don't know really why, but like a rich text editor, for example, is not great there. Also putting in the images, and it just has some limitations. So I've tried to figure out something else. Then I did some research, and Cosmic popped up, and the thing that got me was the conversion, or the conversion tool, I think it's called, something like that, for WordPress, where you can, a couple of clicks, you can convert your WordPress site into JSON, and then that goes then into your CMS of Cosmic.js itself. That's what I did. I had to run it through some kind of code snippet I did, but once I did that, everything was fine, and it was just uploaded in Cosmic, and it worked like 2 hours or 3 hours or something like that, which was perfect for me. And yeah, from there on, I could connect it to the Next.js application. That was done with Tailwind, very lightweight, so not bloated at all. And yeah, then I actually got the 100-page speed, so mobile 100-page speed, like slow mobile connection, all of that. So that's where I figured it out. Like, it's actually possible. It's not something that is unachievable, this 100 green page speed lighthouse score. So that's how I got into Cosmic.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you get to experience the confetti? You get all the hundreds and then the confetti. I learned about that.
Should have gotten
using,
something, yeah, but
right. Using Next.js, it's a killer stack. I mean, using Next.js and Tailwind, it's I think for development, like, Next.js is a great experience, and then Tailwind, you can write it very quickly, and moving into the whole world of mixing, I guess, your JSX and CSS, it's like with Tailwind it feels very natural. But you said that, did you say you used you tried to use the WordPress? Did you use the GraphQL plugin for WordPress initially?
No, I took the decision to do a hard cut from WordPress, yeah, and then just use the conversion tool from Cosmic.js, and then it was already uploaded, yeah.
Cool.
So you mentioned something that makes me kind of go back to something Stefan and I talk about quite a bit. The challenges that you had with WordPress being, sort of something that you have to maintain. You mentioned the images being a bit of a problem, right? To like optimize across all the different devices for serving those images. A word that comes to mind in kind of this new age of development is specialization. Whereas I think, WordPress tried to really accommodate all of these different features with marketing, with, technology, delivery, and all the kind of things that come with a WordPress website. But now we're kind of unbundling all of these things into really the specialized best of each service, right? So like for your, your front end development, Next.js is a great system to choose, which gives you like all of the benefits of optimizations on the front end, right? And then choosing Cosmic, you get a specialized content management system, which actually out of the box comes with Imagix, which is best of image CDN delivery, and so really I'm seeing just this trend being so beneficial for teams of developers and content creators, in that you get sort of all of the best of breed services from all of these different technology choices, right? So you chose Next.js, you chose Cosmic. With that comes global CDN, as well as an image CDN, image processing on the fly, and so and then you get to the confetti moment of like, validating your choice as far as like the best speed and the best performance, the best SEO. And it really kind of comes down to, I think, choosing to use all of those best of breed services and then putting them all together. And that seems to be like what the best modern websites are using today, is just sort of optimizing. The trade-off is you kind of have to put everything together, but the payoff is that you don't have to deal with sort of a monolithic stack that's already kind of predetermined for you. You just kind of choose all of the different components to best suit your needs, right? So anyway, not necessarily a question, but sort of a comment around, sort of the theme around, choosing the best technology. And it's exciting that you chose Cosmic, and I'm happy that it was able to kind of give you that score that you were hoping to get.
Yeah, that was exactly it. And it's not for the needs that I had. Of course, different people have different needs for CMS. For me, it was a blog. I think Cosmic was perfectly built for that. It was not bloated with any other things that I didn't need. Even though I know you have like a plugin, like a store, not a store, but like a plugin library that you can use and expand it way more. But for me, that was great. That's also one of the issues with WordPress. It's just very bloated. Like, you need to have a couple of plugins in there. It's also, if you navigate it, at least how I did it, maybe I chose the wrong server. But it's just slow. Like, you want to change something, and then you click back to all posts, and then you wait for like 2 seconds. It's just not really seamless. And that's as you already said, it's like if it's before it was a big monolith, you had really to know what you're doing server side wise, like where to put the server, how much performance do you need for the server. And then also with WordPress itself, and then with images, you just needed to have a lot of knowledge of many different things. And now with Next.js, they put a lot of the difficult parts like images and routing and all of those things on their shoulder, as well as with something like Cosmic, they put all of the CDN image delivery, as scaling the server that you have, and all of that. They put it on your shoulders, or on your as Cosmic.js, and then you just have to connect those things, and that's of course then the job of a modern front-end developer, I would say.
It's what comes to mind for me with all that you said is like the composability, and WordPress, you out of the box, you have all these things. It's like, here you go. Do you want them? Do you not want them? Well, it doesn't really matter. We're giving you all of it. And even at first, I was thinking a few minutes ago, I was thinking of just the CMS in general, like the composability you can achieve through a headless CMS like Cosmic. You can essentially set up your bucket however you wish to. There's, it's pretty limitless. And for the most part, WordPress is like, well, here's your pages, here are your posts, and go off with that and do what you will. You can create custom menus and whatnot, but it kind of like elevates into this whole idea of the modern, I suppose the modern web developer, even the modern front-end developer being able to use APIs, Jamstack, CMS, front-end frameworks like Next.js, even though Next.js is also very much viewed as a back-end framework with the things you can do with API routes and all those kind of things. But it's very empowering, and I see this trend more and more, this pattern of like these technologies are just boosting and boosting and boosting, and it's the composability that I think really sells a lot of it. You can go get one of these services, you can implement a microservice and then use the API, and bam, you've got authentication, you've got a database, you can have a giant database, you can use, like PocketDB, a really lightweight database you can get going with for free. So it's a really, I think it's a cool time to be in web development and building websites, and what can I say? But
I think back to the times probably where Tony was around, like with PHP and all of these things. That's not even crazy. I think even React, when we used class components, or I have to exclude myself, I never used class components. I was just getting in where we have functional
Same.
components. And then even on top of that, where we just had JavaScript, like I converted the whole website project. We had 2 TypeScript, and since then I sleep way better and I develop way better.
Yeah.
So it's just, I cannot even imagine like building the whole thing that we did right now with the website system without TypeScript. Like it's just not possible. Last time I had to code some like API routes which weren't 100% connected with TypeScript, because it's of course an API route. You just have to trust that the data is correct then. And it was horrible, and it was like back in the days all JavaScript development. So yeah, if you I don't even know what the developers before my time did to make the things work. It's just high respect from my side. Now it's very easy. Next.js has everything we need, front end, back end. TypeScript helps us with everything else. We just need to connect stuff, so it's way better now.
You kids don't know how lucky you are, all right? Back in my day, I had to edit the htaccess file. I was FTPing PHP files.
No.
Yes. Saving it onto a server. Debugging on production.
Tony, why don't you tell us about Cowboy Code, Tony?
I'll tell you about Cowboy Code. Let me tell you. Manually renewing your SSL certs with a bated breath and a sweat dripping down your brow, hoping you don't take the whole production server down. Yeah, I remember that back in the day. Before like beautiful like CI/CD, GitHub workflows, all that stuff. We're spoiled now. I think it's a great time to be a developer, great time to create content around these tools, which I think we all agree like makes things so much easier. Like we mentioned, like moving things more towards like the front end of the stack. I think front end developers have never been more empowered with like all of these great tools, Next.js, API services, using the best of breed services, so you don't have to worry about like manually doing any of these things. Like I mentioned with like server side management, back end stuff. Like you really don't have to do a lot of that stuff anymore. It's all kind of migrated more towards the front end, which I think is a great thing, because I think as self-taught engineers, we all love to build great products, right? That's kind of what got us into this space, is we love to build things that people can use. And like, people are mainly on the front end, right? They're not having to deal with back end stuff. So the faster we can kind of ship great products to customers, I think the happier we all are, satisfying that creative drive to put out really great products. And so, yeah, I just wanted to echo that sentiment, that this is a great time to be a developer and to put out content around these tools. So anything else to add? I feel like I'm winding things down. Do we have anything else to mention, Stefan, before we close it out with Sam?
I got a hot take here. A question for you guys. With all these microservices and all this empowerment of the front-end developer, are developers getting lazier because we have all this luxury like CI/CD and like workspaces where you can see previews and all these things and all these APIs that's happening in your applications? Is that a possibility? And what do you guys think of that?
You want to take it away, like the old dogs first, then I get my newbie opinion.
Yeah, Tony, you've seen you've seen the transformation.
I'll just mention really quick that I think being a lazy developer is a good thing. I forget, there's like a meme that's like, you give two people a problem to solve. It's like one person's a developer, one person's not. Like the person who's not the developer, like they'll work on a steady line, and then the engineer will like actually like not do any of the work, but like write a script, and then boom, like once the script is written, then like it's like automated. It's like it seems like laziness, but at the same time, I feel like it's just good time management, right? Where you kind of want to get more for less, right? You want to be as efficient as possible. So when you choose these best of breed services, instead of building it yourself, it's always like build versus buy. You kind of have to take the pragmatic approach of is it worth the cost to use this service, or is it worth my time to build it out myself? But I think there's always going to be that question, regardless of what kind of time you enter into this space, there's always going to be tools that are pre-built that are ready for you to use, which may seem like a lazy choice, but at the same time, it's really just time management. So I guess that's my answer is yes, being a lazy developer can be a very good thing.
That's a great take.
Completely agree with that. I try to copyright the term, so don't steal it from this podcast, which is lazy smart. That's probably already somebody has come up with that, but that's the way I see myself. I'm like lazy smart. And the thing is exactly how you said it, Tony. Like it's as if like we have to figure out again, going back to the business aspect of things. Like what does the user actually need? It's usually not a lot. Even though we're on the website and building all these crazy things, most of the crazy things that we build is, at times not really too useful. So you could have not spent the rest 3 months coding something and it would have brought more value to the user. So it's just very important to think about what exactly you're doing and what problem it's solving, or if it's just like coding away, which is good for a personal project, but not maybe something that you're working on in a business. So yeah, I'm more of a minimalistic guy in those things. Yeah, which brings me back to the point. I also think it's gotten easier. But what we actually also do is, of course, like try to do a very interactive Facebook type, Reddit type application with PHP or something like that. Like good luck with that. So what we are actually building is also more complex. Before websites was images, links, and text, and now it's way more than that. So I think we are always having like keeping like this bug that always has kind of this bowl of poo and pushes it in front of him. It's a little bit like that with us developers. Like things get easier, but we're always having kind of this buffer between the expectation of the business and what we're actually trying to do, and kind of the pile of poo is where we're at in figuring out how we do things. So it's getting easier, but we're also building crazier stuff. So I think at the end of the day, it's always this buffer that we're trying to navigate, especially in the front end where we have now. It's not as hard to build things. It's harder to figure out with what to build it. So try to figure out like the perfect CSS solution for you. Is it vanilla CSS? Is it something like Sass? Is it Tailwind? Is it Material UI, like a design library or something like that? Like, yeah, good luck figuring that out for your new project. So I see it a little bit more like that.
Yeah.
Stefan, what's your answer to that?
Yeah. Well, geez,
Is it
I
good
don't
to
know
be
if I
lazy?
could top. You guys both had excellent answers. I think that, things are getting easier, but we're like almost overwhelmed with all these options. But with that being said, I'd rather have more options than less, because it just depends on the project, and you never really know. Like even as simple as something like, do you want Bootstrap or Tailwind? And it's like, well, I mean, Bootstrap, you kind of get going really quick. Tailwind, you have some more freedom and everything. But it's like the options, I would say, are nice to have. And yeah, like Sam said, you said it's everything's getting more complex. I mean, reality. These websites are looking better these days. They're doing more. They're handling more users, more mobile users. So that's a big deal too. Mobile users with slower internet connections. How are we handling all these things, all these requests to the database, and how are we serving them as best as we can? So I think my take on the whole thing is like a super high level view, and holistically, all of these services just provide a better user experience, and I hope that we're not creating more issues with abstracting away a lot of the nitty gritty, and I hope that we filter a lot of them out, because of course from the biggest applications and companies, you're always still seeing errors. You're seeing bugs every day, and it's hard to account for that when you've got a developer plugging in, oh, I'm using this service and I've automated this whole thing, and well, it's like, you missed a few tests and there's a few bugs in there, and well, but overall I think the user experience is just getting better for everybody, and I think that's one of the most important things about the web, is that it's accessible to everyone, and you never know what product or what company is going to change the world next. So, yeah.
Definitely.
Amen.
And I think, you know,
But,
that's and the ones that solve the user's problem the best win, right? And I think that's the exciting part about this, is that I think it's never been a better time to enter the space and be as driven by customer delight, by shipping products to users faster, by solving people's problems faster, and using the tools that are available to do that. Whether that's a lazy choice or whether that's a really, pragmatic choice or whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as the user is getting the experience and having their problems solved faster, which I think is definitely happening, right? Expectations are getting higher, but also the development is getting more complex. But also, I think it does have a simplicity in that we're all kind of leaning on each other. All of these services are sort of like, really kind of boosting everyone up, and everyone benefits from it, especially the end user when they get the better experience. So with that. Well, I'll just close it out and just say thank you, Sam, for joining us and making this a very exciting, informative, and helpful interview. And excited to check out more DevWorld videos. And do you want to kind of let everyone know where to find you and how to connect with you on your channel?
Sure. So the channel is called DevWorld, like Dev, like developer, world, like the blue planet. If you just put that in the search bar, you should be able to find it. Yeah, the YouTube is pretty much the only real thing I do. I don't have Twitter and all of the other social media, so this is where to find me. Also, I'm offering consultations, especially PageSpeed, Next.js, all of these things. You can find that on the website, again, if they're linked in the YouTube.
Awesome. Great. Stefan, anything else to close this out?
Sam, thank you so much. It was an absolute joy having you on the show, and I think everyone definitely go give his YouTube channel a look. There's some really great content on there, and you won't regret it. So thanks again, Sam.
Yeah, we'll have absolutely. Thank you for joining us, and thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll have links in the show notes. So all right, thanks everyone. Bye.